Hi, welcome to a video. That's the worst intro ever. So I've said this before, that at the beginning, end and beginning of the year, I get in like a reading slump. It's now June, so it's halfway through the year. I am still in that reading slump. And what I've found is that now that I have a library card and I also have Kindle Unlimited, I think I have too many options. Like, does that make sense? Like, all of the things that I've been wanting to read, I can now read, and I want to read them all equally. Like, I'm not overly excited for one over the other, and so now I don't know what to read. And I also feel like I DNF books quicker when they're digital, just because I don't know. I guess I stick through it if it's a physical book for some reason. I don't know why, but I genuinely like have not really been fully in love with a lot of the books that I've kind of read this year. Now, I have read two 5 stars this year, but those were both by the same author, and I'm forgetting her name, but I do remember The Sword of Kaigen and The Blood Over Brighthaven. Incredible. Love those books. Now, was I like wanting and excited to read those? Not really, if we're gonna be honest. I also was excited and really wanting to read with Rhythm of War, Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson, which I did end up reading and gave like 4 stars. I believe if I'm remembering right, but I love that series so much, so like of course I'm excited about it. But the fifth book doesn't come out until like the end of this year, and so I don't have more of that. Now, like, I have like lists of books, like multiple lists, and it just keeps getting added to it because I watch so many different booktubers that it just keeps piling onto the list, and I keep having new books that I want to read, and then I keep wanting to read them more than the books that I'm either currently reading or like about to read, which then makes it so that I'm like, either I'm reading a book and I'm just waiting to get done with it so I can read the other book. But now it's kind of like, well, I can read that book now, and then it makes it so I'm like, but I should be reading this book, or not should be, but I want to read this book also. And so now I'm just in a weird, confused place where I'm not really reading. I was reading, so I was reading Jasmine Throne. I was in a slump, and I only had it for like 14 days before I had to return it to Libby again. But I had to return it, and so I didn't end up, I made it like 15% through it, so I didn't end up reading all of it. And then I got Hurricane Wars from Libby. DNF that. It was not good. I can tell you right now that that book was not for me. I personally do really love Star Wars. I haven't watched the sequels, it would be. I do love the prequels the most, which I know, like, I never watched the sequels because I've heard that they're bad. I also just don't really care about the storyline that goes into that. The book I started reading, it's basically, so it's Reylo inspired is what the Hurricane Wars are, and they're kind of like Star Wars, but if it was like set back in the day. So it's like ships instead of actual spaceships, and it's like two sides fighting against each other. She literally calls is like basically represents the dark side, or like the Sith, the Night Empire. It's not for me. It just, the writing and just the pacing of it, and just like the characters, like this. I don't know if it is because it was YA. It felt younger than YA to me. And maybe I'm just not, since I haven't experienced that love story, I don't have that much care about Reylo, that I'm not like personally jumping over the moon, excited to read any sort of, thing that's technically like a fanfic of it. So while I'm waiting for books to come in on Libby, which, knowing my luck, they'll probably come in like tomorrow, I started reading Heartless Hunter, which was kind of just like a spur of the moment thing, but I kept seeing it, and I so I picked it up today. I got it on Kindle Unlimited. I read it on my iPad. I want you to guess how many pages I have read after like maybe a week of like maybe reading at max 50 pages. 234. I read 234 pages of this book. I have a headache now. Okay, it's not that it's like world stopping, but it is definitely like a really interesting plot. And I also think I realized I either need to become a romance girly or I need to just basically read a bunch of romantasy. Because listen, I have fun with fantasy, but it has to be like real good to get me to read the entire thing. But like, if it's a romantasy, I for some reason stick around a lot longer. But it's basically about this witch and a witch hunter in this world where basically they witches used to be like royalty, and like you could tell them from scarring on their body because they use blood and stuff, and they got basically all killed and rooted out, and there's like this new republic now, and they're still hunting witches. And so she's a witch and she's also helping other witches out, and she's called the Crimson Moth. The series is called like the Crimson Moth series, which I was like, isn't that like a movie or a book or a movie based on a book? I don't know. When I read Witch and Witch Hunter, I was like, Matthias and Nina? Sign me up! Okay, I loved their dynamic so much, and I miss them with my whole heart. Now, is this book like them? No, because their story is kind of like a whole thing happens to where Matthias is like completely not a witch hunter anymore. This dude's still a witch hunter while stuff is happening between them. So I don't know why I keep doing that. I genuinely don't know what happened to me to where I got to the 100-page mark and I was like, I want to keep reading. And then I kept reading to 234, even though I was like, I'm going to stop at 200. I think I have an issue now. The only time I spend like 4 hours like sitting down reading in one span is for like a Brandon Sanderson book that I'm like wanting to get through, like, and it takes a while for me to get through. That, I don't know why. Okay, maybe I'm just like but it is a very interesting power system. And also just kind of, I always find it funny when there's like books set after things have happened. That's like majority of books, but it's always very funny to me because it always, sometimes when you're reading it, it sounds like the thing that happened, the war or something event that happened, sounds way more interesting than what they're writing about. Anyways, I'm sweating so badly right now. So I'm going to stop filming and maybe keep reading. I don't know. I also want to get into With Livy manga. I listen, I know that might sound like a sin to some of you to be reading a manga on like an iPad or just like on a phone, but I genuinely really want to get into it. And whenever I go to the library, they only have like the later editions in it. It's the manga turned into a movie which is called Tomorrow's Edge, if I'm remembering right. I think it's Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt who are in that. And it's like something all need is kill or something. And I genuinely really want to read it, but the second edition is not. My library doesn't have it, so I'd just be reading the first one. And I've been like trying to see like what manga I would want to like start with, but a lot of the really popular ones that people really recommend are like I have to wait for them, and I already have so many holds that I can't. I don't want to like, I really want to read those books and I don't want to like take them off to be able to read the manga, but I also really want to get into manga. It's a whole thing. I might start reading some of that. So if you have some recommendations, thank you. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read it because of my library might not have them. But anyways, I'm sweating so badly. Bye. Wow. Hi. So, like you saw, I finished Heartless Hunter. I may or may not have read another 100 pages last night, which put me at like 300 something. I finished it today. I read like 106 something pages today, which, so fun, but I genuinely did really like this book. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't be reading it that fast if I didn't, but I did only end up giving it 4 stars. I don't know how you pronounce her last name. I'm just gonna call her Kristen. Love the book. I don't think that this is necessarily a spoiler, but it is definitely like close your ears if you don't want to know something that happens at the end of this book. Whenever there's enemies to lovers in this book, and it's like supposed to be like a duology or series, I always am like, so they're gonna fall in love in the first book, and then they're going to just like have some sort of weird conflict in the second one. Like, you know how annoying it is when characters are like fighting for their lives and then they just have an issue with each other, and then there's a conflict around that for some reason, even though they're literally about to die and they should just be, you know, happy with the fact that they even know each other because they talk about how much they love each other constantly. That, I always hate that. So the way that this book ended to make it enemies to lovers again, I freaking love that, okay? Also, setting it up at the end of a book rather than at the beginning of a book, love that. I don't want to have to read about that in the second book, okay? I want to get into it. I don't want to hear about, well, here's the reason why, you know, they can't be lovers anymore. Shut up. Get out of my house. Like, sometimes it is annoying because the miscommunication trope is very annoying. It's not like I don't hate it like as badly as other people might, but it's definitely not one of my favorite tropes either, okay? It's like you need to have some form of it for enemies to lovers to kind of work, especially when they're on like two separate sides. There needs to be some sort of like miscommunication to like make it so that they either still hate each other or they doubt each other and they like have reasons not to be in love. Like it sadly it does have to be a part of it, even though the trope is awful. But there are a couple tropes in this that I did not love. I got really scared that there was gonna be a pregnancy trope because, like, oh, like I said, they use blood, and she uses blood from her period. Shut up if you think that's gross. It's a natural thing. But she uses that to basically cast instead of cutting her skin, because whenever you cast a spell using your own blood, it creates like a gray scar, and that's basically how they identify whether or not somebody's a witch, is by looking for those gray scars to see if they've cast spells or anything. But she uses period blood. And she was talking about like, oh, like, you know, I'm out of blood because some events happened, and she's like talking about my period hasn't started yet, like her cycle hasn't started yet, and I was like, I will throw my iPad against the wall because I'm an iPad kid. I've been reading this on my iPad. I would throw this against the wall if there's a pregnancy trope in this, because no, I'm not reading a whole second book of her going through so much while she's pregnant, okay? Listen, it's fine to have pregnant characters. Pregnant women can be incredibly strong, and if it's a well-written story, I will absolutely love it. Don't use that as a way to keep these characters together, okay? Because that is a horrible way. Being pregnancy trapped into loving somebody, but that's not in this book. Yay! I just love the fact that she, instead of like, you know, trying to come up with a really complex way, she was just like, yeah, we bleed once a month, so, you know, she uses that. I was just like, go off. But I will say, it's always really funny to me when there's two people in books and there's like a sunshine character and a dark character, and they're always like, the dark character is like so cold and like brutal and like rough and like I can't stand him, and the sunshine character is all like, oh my gosh, like I'll love you forever, I'll be by your side. But then they're always like, but the dark character, I'm like, if this was a real life scenario, you're telling me you would choose somebody who you'd feel unsafe with rather than the sunshine character who makes you feel safe? It's always so funny to me. But very good book, okay? I do feel like there were some parts of it that I was like a little bit rolling my eyes at. It's like just some very like phrases or wording that she had in there that had that, but it was like very like rarely in there. It was just some of the characters who were talking, she probably was portraying them as annoying, and that's why she did that. But it is ultimately funny to me, the fact that I was just like sitting there and I was just like, You also know when you're reading a book and you're like, at some point you're kind of just reading to get to the characters who are, supposed to be the love interests get back together, like they have some form of like communication again. I might have done that towards the end of this book. I might have been waiting for them to like meet up again. Listen, you write a really good romance between two characters and you expect me to care about the rest of the world? No! The world is good. I do like it, and just like kind of the craziness within it. I do think that the magic system is, I hesitate to say simple, but it definitely kind of is that. Like, there's very much like, it's not just like endless powers where they can just keep running and she can throw powers. Like, you have to draw the symbols with like blood and everything, so they're not like overly powerful, which does make sense for the plot of like witch hunters and them being able to actually usurp people and stuff. That does make sense, but it's always very funny to me when that stuff happens where like these witches that are so horrible aren't actually as powerful as like in other fantasies. But I also do think that the different dynamics and plot twists that she had at the end, I'm gonna be very genuine, she like threw me on 5 different people's cases. I was not expecting who it was at the end. So, she did a good job, but I'm just stupid, so maybe you figured it out. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, for all of that, I only gave it a 4 stars. But it's been a while since I have like sat down and almost read a book within a day. I think the last time I did that was with the second book in the Renegades series, just because that was so good. But I am now, what is it called? I have my iPad here. Also, I didn't realize it earlier until I was watching it back how much smudges are on my iPad screen. I now have, ignore the Jasmine Throne because that's not actually on there. I now have One Dark Winter by Rachel Gillig. Gillig? I think that's her name. But it, like, I was reading the description and I was like, oh, am I really gonna read like another witch book? The description of it, of her being like possessed by a demon, and this dude who's a highwayman who's actually like, I think he's like the nephew of the king, and he's trying to save like the kingdom from like dark magic and stuff, and they have to find like these cards and stuff. I always heard people talk about how interesting the magic style in this is, but these weren't, unless I'm wrong, weren't originally on Kindle Unlimited, so I didn't read them when they first came out. But both books, I believe it's only a duology, are now on Kindle Unlimited. But we will see if I read both of them or even finish One Dark Window, because I don't know if the Jasmine Throne will come back and I'll be able to read it. But I keep putting it, like, I keep not taking it when it gets released to me. Is there's a fantasy book that I really want to read. I forget the name of it, but it is not a duology, it's a series, and the second book is on Kindle Unlimited. So I am reading another witch book, but like, it worked so well the first time. And it's very funny to me how this happens multiple times, where I will be like really not wanting to read at all, and then I'll read a really good book, and then I just like full steam ahead like plow through like 5 books, and then I just kind of stop. Like, I read one really good book and I'm like, all books are good, and then I just don't find any more good ones, and I'm just like, they all suck. But I do want to start a One Dark Window. I know that there's a romance in it, which makes me very curious how like the second book goes, if there's a romance already starting within the first one. That is why I liked Heartless Hunter, is because of the way that it ended with the romance. Like, not just being like, well, they're in a relationship already, so like, you're just reading for the world now. Unless the world is really good, but like, or the relationship's so cute that you like need more of it. Normally I'm just like, do I really want to read the second book? But this book series has been like so hyped up. But I also do love me a good little demon. Somebody being possessed by a little demon. I love that, okay? And it's like, apparently she like can't fully control it, which I already know she's gonna be like, I can't control it, she's gonna be doing bad things, and then she overpowers it somehow. I already know that's what's gonna happen. But do I love that? Yes. So I'm probably gonna be screaming, kicking and screaming my feet. Screaming my feet? What is happening? I might be having a stroke. I also didn't get the manga that I was talking about. I might. I might. Don't hold me to it, okay? I'm gonna start reading One Dark Window, and then we'll see where it goes from there, alright? Hello! So, I started reading One Dark Window last night, and I can definitely tell you that I like it. Oh, also, I was watching Destiny Sidwell, another booktuber. She was talking about how the Heartless Hunter is a YA book. Huh? That book is not even close to being YA, okay? It definitely does, like, not go into detail on, like, certain things, which made it so that I enjoyed it more. Like, she wasn't, like, overly talking about it, which for some reason I just enjoy more, I guess. But it was so funny to me. She said that, I was like, huh? Because that's not young adult. I'm not letting, like, if my 13-year-old self read that, I'd be like, One Dark Window. It already is very, like, interesting. It is a lot more, I hesitate to say, like, flowery writing than, like, Heartless Hunter, but it is very much that. There's, like, poems at the chapter heads. Nightmare the Demon sometimes will speak in poems. Like, that's not all of it, like, the descriptions and stuff that she gives of the world, but she doesn't do it to the point where, like, you're annoyed by it and just wanting to, like, move on to the characters and what they're thinking rather than just, constantly having the place described. She does it in a way that's, like, perfect to the point that it doesn't annoy you. And there already has been some very, like, convenient things that have happened in this. Like, like, when very convenient things have to happen for these, like, set events in the future to go on. I don't really love those, but I absolutely understand, like, they're absolutely necessary for the story in the first place, and that's why they're there. But it's just so funny to me to read those, because it's like, this thing happened, and oh, guess who these two people met? Oopsies. But I'm only like 100 pages in, and we're already getting kind of into it. We know now more about the magical system, which I do have to say is incredibly interesting to me. I think I heard somebody say that it was kind of complicated. It's pretty simple in my mind, at least, but maybe that's just because I'm used to, like, way overly complex fantasy books where they're just like, and this one ability you can also do these 50 things with, but they don't know that. Or, like, you have to use this specific thing from this specific place, and then, it gives you this, and then, but it can also do this. Like, there's, maybe I'm just too used to that, but I can see the confusion of, like, because there's 12 Providence cards is what they're called. I can understand, like, mixing them up, and I probably will too, but it is a very interesting way that they get their kind of powers and the way that she describes her powers. It has very much, if you ever read The Young Elites, it gives very much that vibe of, they became sick, and then because of that sickness you can gain powers, but instead of in The Young Elites where it just kind of happened and now everybody kind of, well, not everybody, but a lot of people have powers. Instead, in this world, like, if you have dark blood from the fever, they're gonna come and kill you. So that's really fun. But basically, as you could guess, our main character had this happen, but she is saved, because of other reasons. But so we met a character, like, right at the beginning. Well, not right at the beginning, but first, and I thought he was going to be the love interest, and now there's a different guy named Raven who's the love interest now, or at least I believe he is. And let me tell you, I didn't think that it was going to be him. I also it's quite literally only because I've read Heartless Hunter, but, like, the comparison of, like, a statue being, like, cold and, like, hard, like, that, like, been used in both of these books. Why is it always, like, why is that the new description? Why is that the new thing? Like, these cold, like, guys that like barely smile and like you have to really work it out of them to get them to smile. Like, I don't want that. Personally, I don't want that. If you don't laugh at my jokes, I'm gonna be insecure and I'm not gonna keep trying to make you laugh, okay? But the world in this one is already like not like really established, especially because we're following a character who kind of has been like shut away her whole life. So we're doing that thing where we're like discovering things with her and like getting knowledge with her about certain things, and so it makes you feel really good because you're as dumb as the main character is. I'm only 100 pages in. I don't know. I'm probably not going to finish this as fast just because it's a little bit more with the writing and world. It's a little bit more dense, but I can already tell you, love the way that this is going to go. Already love having a little demon character. I love any like disembodied like little creature that talks to people. I love that so much, especially because they're either intentionally sarcastic or since they're not human, they like don't understand the way that things are, so they like talk weirdly about things and that comes off as comedy. I always love those little characters. I know they can annoy some people, but I personally really love them. But anyways. Whoa. Girl, what is you talking about? What is happening? this, this scene is giving me the ick. This is, oh my gosh. Why why do we keep talking about how calloused his skin is? Like, she's brought it up 50 times. Girl, is there something you need to talk about? Like, why are we bringing that up? Also, just like, this scene is not good. It's been a day since I last talked to you, or since you've seen that last clip. It was like 2 seconds for you, but it's been a whole day for me. I have not finished One Dark Window, but I did get in 2 different books from Libby. I forget what it's called, but it's a book written by Richard Swan. It's the first book in a series, but I put in like a hold for, I believe the book is called A Deep Sky, which is like a sci-fi mystery novel, and I got it like within a couple days after doing that, even though it was like a 2 week wait. So now I want to read that after One Dark Window. So I've calmed down a little bit since the last time I talked to you, but it's still so crazy to me. When I was reading that part in the book, so we've already gotten to like kissing and, you know, all that stuff. Nothing like actually happened because, you know, they were interrupted, but like, okay, so we're 200 and actually less than 250 pages in. We're less than that. We establish fake dating in this, right? So they leave the court. She's staying over at their house. So like everybody has this idea, and they like maybe twice now have like talked about the fake dating, but it was like such short scenes and made as a joke. So you want to tell me why we're 200 something pages in with barely any like actual tension between them? Like, there hasn't been one of those scenes where it's like, you know, we're just fake dating and I don't want to do it. Like, they both didn't want to actually be fake dating, obviously, because they barely know each other, but like, you're telling me that you're just gonna have them kiss and stuff without tension? Now, I just realized that probably should make me concerned because there probably is going to be something that happens to make it so that there is some sort of like tension or something that happens. But like, I'm gonna be very genuine. I would have been fine like having them pine and like wait over each other until the second book. As annoyed as I would have been, like the tension, the build up, and like the little acts that they've already done for each other, like, you know, the stuff that's already happened between them is really cute, and I do really enjoy that. I just wish that it was like more of it, that like halfway through the book we weren't just given their relationship, you know? But this does have an element that I do really love, which is found family. Well, it's not really, it is, but it isn't at the same time. It's such interesting dynamics between each character, but it just feels like the goal that we have, that's all we're focusing on, which is fine, but it's so far like in the future and we just keep skipping times and stuff, which is fine. I do like that, and I do think you could have a really good story with like skipping and just like doing a bunch of time jumps to like when big events are happening, because you can have really tense moments between characters because of them having to go and do this stuff to achieve their goals and stuff. But like there hasn't really been that much of that. There has been some like crazy things that have happened, but it's like not really that good. Like I feel like her worlds are really good. I feel like she has a harder time writing like character connections. Like she has some really solid like characters and ideas, but she's not executing as well as I would have hoped for on it. But I still have like 200 pages, actually less than that, left of this book. Oh, I just remember. This is why I should have filmed yesterday, but I genuinely didn't read yesterday. I didn't do anything yesterday. But like she keeps describing Raven's like hands and body as like coarse and rough, which like is fine, but she keeps saying like callous, like his skin is like leather. Like I don't really want that description for somebody. Like, okay, I get it. He's fighting constantly, and he's like out riding horses and fighting people, and you know, just like being a manly man. Don't describe him as a leather book. Okay, listen. I'm fine with them talking about calluses on hands. I expect that when there's like, you know, they fight with swords and, you know, they do physical labor. I expect that. In fact, when they're like, their hands are soft, even though they do that stuff, I'm like, so they don't actually do any of that? But like, the descriptions were not. Mm-mm. And maybe that's just because I was in a silly, goofy mood that it really just didn't hit for me. But like, I don't know, you know? Like it was fine. It's just really the like the thing about him feeling like leather that really bothered me. It was so fast. It was so fast. Okay, they were like, "Do you not want to pretend anymore?" Girl, you barely had a week of it. Like what are you talking about? Just build up more tension and it will be better. You know what I'm saying? Although there probably is going to be some stupid reason now, but like I can tell you love Raven, love him so much. It's just some of the like it's just it's a little bit of a mess, okay? Okay. I'm on the treadmill. I like the side characters more than the main characters. Elm, Every, Jesper, or I don't even know how you pronounce her name. I like everybody else except for the main characters. It's now Monday. So, updates. I have now started Deep Space. I forget the name of the author. I've finished All You Need Is Kill. That's probably not the title. And then One Dark Window is all done. But, okay. So, You know what? Let's start off with all you need is kill. Should I have looked up at the title before this? Yes, I should have. Shut up. Very good, interesting art. The concept is fun, like a whole alien invasion happening. The tech suits. I've discovered that I like mech stuff, and the ending of it makes me want to read the second one, but the library doesn't have it, so I would either have to buy it or there's a different, I don't know if it's an actually different version or if the covers are just different, but yeah. I gave that 3 stars though. Some of the like woman in it, and like, I know that like there's gonna be that, okay, but like they're in a military base, and this like girl who's like, I think the cook, is in like short shorts and then like a tied flannel showing basically everything, and then she's like, in one part of it she's like, do you want to sleep with me? I'm like, okay, I mean, but anyways, I also gave One Dark Window 3 stars. I feel like whenever I hear about a really popular like fantasy and people are like talking about it a bunch, and I hear the concept of it, because I heard about like 12 cards magic system, and then reading the description I was like, oh, so we're like gonna have to travel back to this kingdom and it's just gonna be him and her. Nope. Listen, I love found family. Wasn't that expounded upon, but it definitely is. Like, I think that's one of the reasons that I like still even enjoyed this book, is because of the side characters. It's not what I really imagined that it would be, and it's very not really for me, I guess, is what I should say, because just like there were some parts of it where just like things happened really quickly, and then other parts that were really slow. Like, it didn't have a good pacing to it, and the romance in it, some parts of it were very cringy, other ones I was like, this is okay. I may or may not have when I was annotating on the Kindle, I may or may not have said something that I really regret. Listen, I was just having like such a fun time cringing and laughing at some of those scenes and just like annotating them. So I have some really weird annotations on that book. But it's genuinely just like, I wish that the romance was better. I do love the whole concept of like a demon being in somebody's head, because they're always, because they don't understand stuff, always sarcastic. And I don't know why. I just love a little sarcastic little buddy. And we also now in Deep Sky have like a AI thing that is similar to that, and I love this. Keep it coming. I love this style of stuff, alright? But it is genuinely, One Dark Window was kind of a disappointment for me. I don't really know why I hyped it up so much in my brain. I don't even know when I did that, but apparently I did. Also, like a Highwayman, I was expecting a lot more, like, I don't know, difference when he was, like, talking about him being the nephew of the king. I was like, oh, so he's, like, I don't know, he's, like, a highwayman out of necessity now, and he's looking for somebody to help him find all the cards because he's trying to get back into the good graces of the king. Nope. Nope. Deep Sky, not, the cover is really cool, by the way. Like, I would have that framed. Not really loving it so far. It's definitely an interesting plot. I can tell you it because it's not a spoiler. It's literally on the back of the book, but they're on this one-way trip, and there's like a ton of people on this ship, and they're going to colonize another planet, and they just woke up out of like 10 years of being like frozen and stuff, and they also, well, it's been like 11 months, but since they've woken up, but there's an explosion, and it's basically, as of right now, I can tell that it's one of those books that like brings in the past, like talks about the past and the present and like kind of combines the problem of them together so that the character kind of not only resolves the issue that's currently happening but also like finds some peace in the past. And that's I've never really read too many books that have done that. I've read books that have done that in like little sections or characters who have made peace with their past, but I haven't really read one that does this. I've heard like amazing things about books that do that though. If this made it any sense, but I do want to say one thing though about this is that they basically were talking about like how everybody has to get pregnant on this trip. There's already over 70 people, and you're telling me that you're bringing children onto this ship? Anyways, the explosion has already happened. It's crazy. I can't really say like fully whether or not I like this book yet. It's definitely I'm gonna give it more of a chance because it's not really adding up for me. Also, love the fact that this was the start of this week, like this weekend and the start of this week, I've been getting basically every hold that I put in from Libby. Like, I'm trying to read something else, but I'm also wondering if I should read One Dark Window's sequel. It's like two something. I forget what it's like actually called, but they're both currently on Kindle Unlimited. So I'm like, should I? Hi. It is now Friday. I have not talked to you since like Tuesday, maybe? Oops. I just returned The Deep Sky. I didn't finish it. I don't know what it is about the books that I'm getting off of Libby that I'm just like not really interested in, but I am for once in the mood to read, and another book on Libby just came in that I've been actually really wanting to read because the second book is on Kindle Unlimited. The book was recommended by Pursue Projects, I believe. It's called The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. It is a first in a trilogy, yeah, The Empire of the Wolf. Do I really know what this book is about other than the fact that it's fantasy? No. But I genuinely like, who knows, maybe in the future I'll finish The Deep Sky. I can understand why it's interesting. I just genuinely was not in the mood to read it, like, at all. Every time I would try to pick it up, I was just like, no. And then whenever I was like, oh, I, like, want to read or I need to read, I was just like, I don't want to do that. So, who knows, maybe I need to only be reading romantasy, apparently, but I hope not, because I really want to read this book, and it's probably going to go into next week, because this book, actually, never mind, it's like 417 pages. I might be able to finish it this week, but I would very much doubt it. Anyways, I just realized how crazy I look. Hi! Okay, this is the end of the video. Alright, it's Sunday. I meant to end this on like Saturday yesterday, but my little dumb self didn't do that because I didn't feel like it. Okay, I started out last week really well. I read half of a book and like 200 something pages within one day. I was like very productive that day as well outside of that. And then for some reason, right when I was like, I'm getting out of a book slump, the second week, well, it's Sunday, so now it's a new week, so technically last week, but the last week where there's barely any clips is because I was barely reading. I was just like not in the mood to read. I like genuinely, I was like, I'm out of my book slump, and then it's just I fell right back into it. And I think the issue right now is because I read Rhythm of War, because I've read some thicker, like sci-fi fantasy books, my brain, instead of wanting to have to actually work while I'm reading, kind of just wants to read little romance in fantasy world. That's kind of what it wants. Not saying that, your romantasy is like so dumb and simple that you can just turn your brain off. For me, who comes from reading like again Rhythm of War, the Stormlight Archives, fantasy that's really dense, for me it is easier to like kind of just turn my brain off a little bit and get really absorbed into the world. And there that's like my favorite part about reading is being able to turn off my brain and just kind of picture this entire world and everything in it. And I couldn't do that with the books that I was really trying to read. Like every single book from Libby, or the library technically, I DNF'd. And it's really sad because I've been wanting to read all of these books, but I would just get halfway through and I just couldn't do it. This is the most I've DNF'd books in a while, and it's really weird, but I've noticed anytime that it's not a physical copy, it's a digital copy on a Kindle, I DNF it so much easier. And I think that's because it's not a physical book that I spent my money on, so I feel like I have to finish it. Like, I feel like since it's just digital, and I am paying a library fee to be able to rent books on Libby, but for some reason in my brain, because I don't have to have the money amount on each book, it's so much easier for me just to DNF it and not want to keep reading it. Now, I do really, really want to revisit these series that I've started, except for Hurricane Wars, which I barely even talked about in this because I DNF'd it and then started this video. But I do want to like go back and finish them because it is such a weird thing that's happening right now that I've been like raving about these books. I've been wanting to read them. They're like up my alley, but I just can't get into them. So, let's talk about all the books that I did read. We started off with the DNF of Hurricane Wars, which is basically just like Raylo fanfic. I think it has potential. I only got maybe 50 pages in, maybe even less than that. I don't know. I feel like I read a lot of it, even though I don't think I actually did. But it's just like the conversations and then the like being in the characters' heads, just the way that everything's like really simple and like I hesitate to use dull just because of how negative that sounds, but like it just kind of felt like more towards middle grade than like YA. Because there are some YA books that I've read that are like, they have these crazy concepts and they're able to execute on so well, but this kind of just felt like a middle grade that was trying to be edgy. And I feel horrible saying that, but I do know that a lot of people didn't really like the book. And again, it was digital, so I DNF'd it pretty easily. I also wasn't really wanting to read that one as much. Like, I was just kind of like, oh, it's on here. And then I got it in. And then I was like, this is bad. I don't want to keep reading it. That's the only one I think I'm not going to revisit. It has interesting concept, and I do love kind of like an elaborate fanfic of worlds. I do think that that's really cool. But this one, just I maybe if I got further in the book I would like it more, but just from the beginning I don't really like it. Now, we started this off with the Crimson Moth or Heartless Hunter, depending on which side of the world you're on. I will say that I think Crimson Moth is a cooler name than Heartless Hunter, but this book was really funny to me because I got like addicted. I got drawn in because there was a certain level of like cheesiness, but also like it was done in a really good way to where I was kind of just stuck in there and I wanted to see kind of the romance and everything that happened because you're waiting like for the romance to start, and then once it does, you're waiting for it to turn to where the characters reveal stuff about each other and their secrets and how they react to that, and you're just kind of like waiting for it. And so when they learn about it and they're so devastated, you're kind of like, how are they gonna recoup this? But I do really appreciate the ending of the book. It not just being like, I forget exactly what I said, but just kind of the way that it lends it so that there's actually a reason for a second book and that's not just like, I don't know, it's not just like, well, I want to either make more money or I have more to say about this book, so I'm going to keep writing more. And that's fine because sometimes those are really good. But with this, she actually set it up, and I do really appreciate it. This book was literally like concept that I think a lot of people joke about, where they're like, this I need to find this thing that's like on this person's body, and everybody's like, just sleep with them, and they're like, no. This book was literally that. But I was sitting there laughing because I was like, what's happening? Like, this person is being accused of like one of the worst things in this world, and yet this other character is like, do it, sleep with them, and you're just like, why? Like, I understand the reason why, but like that's like the escalation from like, well, I've seen her in her underwear, and then it was like, you haven't actually searched all of her. I was like, calm down. But anyways, I do think that that is still like a 4 star or maybe like a 3.5. It was definitely a lot of fun. It does have like a little bit cheesy and like very like unrealistic, but again, it's a book. It's meant to be fun. This book did the opposite of One Dark Window, which is the second book that I read. Obviously, you know this, where Heartless Hunter didn't really have that expanded of a world. It like explained little tidbits and it had flashbacks and stuff, and I think that was really well done. But One Dark Window kind of explores the world a lot more than Heartless Hunter did, or Crimson Moth, depending on where you're from. I do really like the world and the magic system in One Dark Window. As you saw, romance was definitely kind of just in your face. Like there was tension, and then it just was like bop. Like normally you have at least like 300 pages of tension, and then like maybe at the end maybe there's like something that happens, but it was just kind of like 200 pages in. It was just like thrown right at you, and I obviously understand the like wanting to add to the kind of emotional depth of the relationship because of what happens at the end of the book. But like it's kind of just weird the fact that it was like there was tension and it was really good, and then it was just kind of thrown at you. But I do have to retake my whole thing about the leather hand situation, because it wasn't that, it was just the feeling of like an old book, which is still weird and also probably is leather. The whole descriptions that she had and some of the dialogue was definitely like made me cringe a little bit, but I do like the concept. The magical system is really cool. I had like from the description of other people and also the synopsis for the book, I had kind of imagined a completely different thing. But this still is a very interesting world. I do think that I kind of, with books like these where they've been talked about so much, I do kind of overhype them a little bit. Like my mind's is like, so many people rave about this, so this has to be really good. And then when it's not perfect for me and my like style of either writing or storytelling that I really love, I'm kind of just like, this sucks. And I really need to stop doing that, but I do love and appreciate this book. And I do want to read the second book in this series because I do know that there's a spice in the second book, and I'm very confused about that because that means that something that happened at the end of this book has to change, or we're doing some weird stuff. But anyways, I'm gonna get the name wrong because I haven't really even looked at it since. But All You Need Is Kill, I believe. It was very actually interesting, and the art in it I did really like. It's a very interesting story about the looping of time and the, what is it called, Groundhog Day effect. I've heard a lot of people who don't really like that, and I've never really read like a book dedicated to it, and I think since this is a different art form and it was kind of right up my alley with being like we're fighting alien monsters, and so there's just like really extreme stuff that's happening, I was kind of just like, let's go, dude. My library doesn't have the second one in this, which really sucks, but I do think that the ending is interesting. The like mech suits are really cool. The aliens and like the way that they defeat them, and then also like the way that the Groundhog Day works so that he has to kind of do certain things and can't just like cop out of it and try to get out of it other ways. I really appreciate, because you're always, sometimes you're reading or watching those movies and you're just like, couldn't they just do this and like it would be fine? But I really appreciate them closing that loophole and just kind of like, ugh. Now, like I said, there is definitely some sexualization of women in it. I didn't love that. But overall, pretty good. The next book that I tried to read is The Deep Sky, and I DNFed it. I think I got 100, maybe 200 pages in. It is really fascinating. It's just there's one action and then it just kind of stands still. And I know if I kept if I kept reading that it was gonna give me more action and that there was gonna be more stuff, but I kind of was just like, I want to read something else. And I kept like just digging my nails into the dirt trying to find other things. And then I can't even remember what the book is called. The like something tyranny or tyranny. It's basically a beginning in a trilogy. I don't know why I had to think so hard about that. And it is a like murder investigation but set like back in the day, and there's like some fantasy elements with it. This is one of the books, just like Deep Sky, I want to go back to. It's just right now, my brain doesn't want to have to do it. So I just genuinely, because it is a lot more dense and it's like leans more towards like epic fantasy, like high fantasy, maybe like with its language and just kind of environment and world. And I do really love that type of stuff. It's just like right now, not for me, honey. So that has been the reading of this whole video. Sorry that the last week is not documented well, and that I didn't really talk that much about those books. I'm very sorry about that. I genuinely just kind of gave up. I like got out of the slump and then I was just fell headfirst right into it. So, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Tell me what other books you think I would like. Maybe some romantasy, maybe some heavy fantasy that I'll get into once my brain stops complaining about having to actually do stuff with it. This sounds really insulting to romantasy. But anyways, like and subscribe, boys. This video is an absolute mess. Bye! See you next time whenever I upload because I've been really bad about it.